Capcom Fighting Game Collection 2 is one I've been waiting for a long time. It's a dream to have some of my most beloved fighting games like Project Justice, Capcom vs SNK 1, and Power Stone all in one package and playable on modern hardware. A video I did a while ago on fighting game collections has aged like spoiled milk, and the more the better for it, since the more accessible these games are, the better. With all these amazing titles being shown to a new generation of fighting game lovers and newcomers, I wanted to dive into one of these games in particular, talk about its development history, gameplay, and what you can expect from it in this new collection, that being the first Power Stone, a colorful historical 3D brawler set in the 19th century. This video is sponsored by Capcom to promote the second Capcom fighting game collection. It's available on PS4, Switch, Xbox, and Steam. A link to purchase it will be in the description. Originally released on the Naomi board for the arcade and Dreamcast system in 1999, Power Stone was produced by Takeshi Tezuka, who had previously worked on other Capcom fighting game titles such as Rival Schools, a personal favorite of mine, and also on this collection. Tezuka's goal when producing Power Stone was to, quote, try and return fighting games to the masses and create an open game with that appeal. Given that he believed that he wasn't very good at fighting games, he wanted to create something that casual enjoyers of the genre like him could play and enjoy. To that end, he designed a fighting game with mechanics that would be simple and easy to use. Power Stone uses 3 buttons, one for punches, one for kicks, and another for jumps. Hitting punch and kick simultaneously allows you to grab opponents and objects. Environmental awareness is equally as important as your fighting game fundies to snag a win. Since there's no ability to block, your movement is the only method of defense, and there are some fun things in here that you can do, like being able to climb ceilings and pillars. Why would you need methods for running away? Well, grabbing 3 Power Stones on the field will transform your character into a powered-up form where they have access to new overpowered attacks, many of which include tracking projectiles. Each time you attack in this state, your meter for the transformation goes down quicker. Close to the meter's end, it's best to just discharge the rest of it with a final attack by hitting 2 different attack buttons at the same time. There is more than one of these attacks too. It can also change whether you're in the air or depending on what combination of buttons you hit. For example, a character like Ayane can either throw a homing flurry of shurikens or do an elaborate super combo on her opponent. Because these moves are so good, the main meta in a fight is to get your butt over to wherever the Power Stones appear ASAP. The bottom of the screen even has a radar that gives you a general idea of where a stone could be on the stage. The gameplay also heavily emphasizes using weapons and items, which often do more damage than just attacking. The downside though is that they have limited durability. Items are integral to the gameplay loop. Because the main objective is to try to get 3 stones before your opponent does, items can help reduce the risk of attacking up close with your character's hand-to-hand skills. It just takes one strong hit or combo string to knock out a Power Stone in your opponent's possession. Items typically only need to hit once to do this. Each stage also has various environmental hazards and features which you can use to your advantage, such as throwing chairs or knocking them against the wall. In addition to taking inspiration from traditional 2D fighters such as Street Fighter, Tezuka also looked at a variety of games in other genres such as the arcade game Budosan, which was released in 1987 and had you playing as pigs throwing bombs at one another. This mechanic, not coincidentally, being very similar to how you can throw bombs in Power Stone with the timers that count down to when they'll explode. Inside of Capcom's secret file number 24, we get some additional tidbits of knowledge about the developmental process. There's a page that mentions that when designing the framework of the world of Power Stone, the inspiration came from Falcon, meaning that his design and personality were always at the center of the team's vision. Inside that same file, we get additional detail into some of the challenges of this process as well. One of the interviewees specifically mentions that the Naomi hardware was so new at the time that the developers would make a lot of unnecessary work for themselves, thus leading to a longer development period than initially expected. Falcon's design alone conveys World Warrior in a way, since he's in a pilot's outfit. The World Warrior theme was made famous by Street Fighter, but here it has a slight twist being that it takes place much earlier. Looking at the cast, it's pretty diverse. Of course you got Falcon, who's the main boy and a bit of a goof. There's also Ayame, who's my personal favorite and main, who's a performer by day and ninja by night. Also, she's just so dang cute. There's Wang Tang, who's bubbly and optimistic, your classic martial arts user. You got your freak archetype in Jack, who I'm sure is heavily hinted to be Jack the Ripper, as well as the big burly grappler in Gunrock and Galuda. Rouge is an enchanting fortune teller, who I suppose serves as the main female lead, and Ryoma is similar to Ryu, not by gameplay standards, but in his desire to train and hone his fighting abilities. When the game was originally released, the arcade version came out first, quickly followed by the Dreamcast port just a few months later, which was largely the same as the arcade one. Though you did have some add-ons like new items and boss characters being unlockable. 7 years later would see the release of Power Stone Collection for the PSP, and this version included both Power Stone 1 and 2. In both the Dreamcast and PSP versions, you'll find 3 VMU minigames. In the Dreamcast port, beating these games allows you to collect medals that unlock different modes, such as an art museum and a music hall. In the PSP collection, only one of the games is initially available, and you can unlock the other 2 through earning said medals. The PSP collection specifically added in characters from Power Stone 2 into the first game. It's cool that you can take these characters from a more casual 4-player game into the entry that's more competitively played, almost like retroactive DLC. There are also new items which you unlock after playing through each character's arcade mode. A huge negative of this collection though is that it would be kind of impossible to play multiplayer now with the servers being down. Not to mention, not a lot of folks with PSPs these days either for local battles. And of course, you have the most recent re-release of the Power Stone games on the Capcom Fighting Game Collection 2 earlier this year, which includes the arcade versions of Power Stone 1 and 2. Now you can play as the 2 bosses in Power Stone 1 right off the bat. I really appreciate this game's gallery mode. Inside, you can view the key art, which captures the frantic energy of a match with everyone reaching for the Power Stone. There's also art of each character up close and of their Power Stone forms. Before looking at this gallery, I actually never knew that Falcon's jacket had Michelle Hart on it, which is a reference to the shmup Legendary Wings. Curiously, there's even what looks like concept art for unused characters, which is a shame since I think the roster could have used one more female character. Separately from the games, there was also a Power Stone manga and anime that both came out a few months after the arcade game's release in April 1999. The anime gives some additional character moments and follows main boy Falcon. Capcom was on a bit of a small media blitz having these 2 released one after another. The game intro opens up with an old-timey film reel with a countdown followed by words flickering against the black background. A narrator reads the text flying across the page, but you can kinda tell their soul isn't really into it.
Superstition and legend. Adventurers seek the world for fortune and glory and a legendary treasure which has the power to make dreams come true. That treasure is known as the Power Stone.
They then go on to explain that the Power Stone has the power to make dreams come true, and then cue montage of each character's profile art. It's nothing crazy for the time, but it does a good job at showcasing the cast's colorful designs and personalities before finally settling on a fluttering world map against the bright and blocky text of the title screen. The art direction of this game is quite good at showing you the world these characters reside in. The aesthetic leans heavily into ideas of globetrotting and adventure, but in a more cartoony way. The stages directly reflect the spirit and personality of each of the playable characters, as well as being romanticized representations of what these areas might have looked like during the 19th century. Lundo is Falcon's stage, clearly meant to be a reference to London with its bustling architecture and vibrant storefronts. Tong'an is a Chinese restaurant that aligns with Wayne Payne's background, it being a place where a fight would likely break out, just like in the Jackie Chan Drunken Master film. Ayame as a performer spends her time in a charming Japanese stage theater called Uedo, where her and her family perform by day between ninja jobs. And the second Japanese stage is Mutsu, which is a snowy feudal estate that conveys a sense of tranquility, much like Ryoma himself. Madad is probably a reference to Baghdad, a castle fortress filled with sand, likely where Rouge is from, and being at night comes off as a little bit mystical. You've got Don Volta, which is a mining facility of sorts with lots of environmental hazards. Dolestown is a dusty saloon somewhere in the American West, another fitting place for a brawl to take place, much like you see commonly in westerns. Then you've got Kraken, just doing his own thing and sailing the high seas on a pirate ship called Skullhaven. Jack's Mancha stage, probably short for Manchester, is a dusty and ominous shopping center in a western city. Wouldn't want to meet Jack in a dark alleyway like this. Last but not least, there's Avalon Island. This area is a temple hidden in the middle of the ocean, with the statue in the center holding a power stone in its mouth. Of all the stages, this is probably the least historically based one, since it doesn't seem to be associated with any particular culture or time, but regardless, it's fitting for a final boss showdown. The Capcom secret file also dives a little bit into the musical direction of this game. One of the music designers mentions how they took the inspiration for the sound effects from classical Chinese action movies. And unlike other Capcom fighters, the soundtrack is comprised of different orchestral arrangements, which is something the Naomi board was able to do that previous arcade boards weren't able to fully implement. The music helps the tone feel more epic and the scale of the game more grand, with it taking you along the adventure your characters are going on. We also see the same design philosophy reflected in the UI of the game. After you select who you're playing as, the screen displays what looks like a navigational tool like a sextant with another compass on top, these being examples of instruments used by explorers back in the day. In arcade mode, you progress through a gauntlet of 8 characters, and it's interesting to me that you can actually encounter a mirror of your own character. You'd think they would mix it up more, it's not like they don't have other cast members they can't use. The gameplay is surprisingly complex and fast-paced despite the simplified inputs, and the matches go on for longer than you'd think. The CPU relentlessly goes after a Power Stone whenever it's on the board, making it a constant scramble to see who gets there first. Once they've gathered all 3 and turned into their powered-up form, thankfully you're not totally helpless. You can actually grab your opponent while they're running around or charging up for a final attack, which will drain their meter and waste time, and that's a big deal when every second in this game matters. The final boss of arcade mode is Valgus, with your character fighting him on an island popping up in the middle of the map. In his powered up form, he has his own unique song complete with choir and metallic sounding percussion throughout. It's very sinister and intimidating, perfect for a final boss theme. After defeating his first form, Valgus transforms into a huge, grotesque monster. His face is on the side of the creature's head, with spikes running down its back, this monstrosity being called Final Valgus. It's very Resident Evil coded, and kind of unexpected given the tone of the rest of the game. Perhaps it's this game's way of conveying that the pursuit of power leads to corruption, which couldn't be more evident looking at this monstrosity. As soon as the match starts, you need to run to the side or else you'll immediately be hit by one of his huge laser beams. Your normal attacks are not gonna cut it here, so you either gotta grab Power Stones and attack him in your powered up form, or use the items scattered about the stage. After beating him, you get to see a unique ending per character done in storybook form, which again carries that historical motif throughout the game. Each of the main cast endings shows different what-if scenarios of them either rejecting, losing, or using the Power Stone. And after all of that, the arcade mode ends with an artsy animated shot of Falcon riding his plane called the Hockenheim over the ocean. Power Stone is a game that I would introduce to friends who have never played a fighter in their life, since its accessibility and cartoonish charm make it an easy game to pick up and play. You can go as deep with the mechanics as you want, only sticking to the basic attacks all the way up to playing competitively, which can be surprisingly intense to say the least. Games like Power Stone are a big reason why I fell in love with fighters in the first place. Their cartoonish theming, simple but deep inputs, and pointed aesthetic creates a playful atmosphere that is well and alive in this collection. Thank you so much to Capcom for sponsoring this video. I do personally actually recommend the Capcom Fighting Game Collection too. I'm very picky when it comes to sponsors, but this is a game I do truly think is worth your time. Again, the link for it will be in the description below. Thanks for watching.